Hey, it's Huck. And I hope you'll bear with me. I'm going to wear my oxygen for this tonight. I just get too short of breath when I try to talk too long. So, yeah, this will just make it easier for me. At any rate, I promised on my main channel yesterday that I was going to try to get up a video today. On my thoughts on the whole, the status of the Donald Trump presidency at this point. He just gave another press conference today where he kind of rambled on for, I don't know, almost an hour, I think. I guess I'm going to start right here. There are 3 or 4 things we absolutely know for certain. One thing that we know for certain is that Donald Trump really probably has no business being president of the United States. Whether it's, and I'm not even talking, policies here. Hell, there's a lot of people in Washington, D.C. who have been doing this for a lifetime that have no business in Washington. But when I say he has no business, I mean, and this is a fact, I'm talking about, not just his inexperience, but his level of knowledge of, how things work in the world. It goes well beyond just, his inexperience governing. It's just his factless state of mind. On top of that, temperamentally, clearly, I think people that have described him as a narcissist, have nailed it, right on the head. So, at any rate, there's a lot of narcissists, who run for office and get elected, but he's about the most extreme case we've seen in quite some time. So that's one thing we, know for a fact. Another thing that we know for a fact is that, that for whatever reason, whatever that reason may be, he has doggedly gone way out of his way to court Vladimir Putin in ways we just have never seen before. Certainly not since World War II. At a certain point you have to ask yourself, and I think this is part of the problem that he is experiencing, is when he goes, we've had a lot of presidents have come into office hoping to make some progress on building a better relationship with the Russians. This isn't new. This is not new. Because there's a lot of things we could do together that would solve problems a heck of a lot cheaper and more efficiently, for one. But having said that, there are certain rules of that engagement that every president has followed from Truman on. And among those rules are, the implicit understanding that we are going to support NATO 100%. And, Trump has gone so far over the ledge on that one. Whether he's unaware or whether he's just, very aware but unconcerned. there are, countries all over, particularly Eastern Europe, former satellites or parts of the former Soviet Union, who, have been witnessing what Russia has been doing in recent years. Now, of course, famously in the Ukraine, but also, having exerted all of the manpower and efforts that they've used in Georgia and throughout Western Europe, they continue to do a lot of the things that they allegedly did during our presidential campaign, by funding and promoting white nationalist movements or hard right movements throughout Europe. And we don't, at least it hasn't been widely reported to what extent, Russia has been behind any of those efforts in this country. But what we do know, the third thing that we know, is that they did interfere with our election, in that they interfered with the campaign process. Now, a lot of that information is classified, but that came out, by September, October. We knew that not only were they allegedly behind some of the DNC emails and the John Podesta emails, the campaign manager of Hillary Clinton, but that those emails, which were leaked through WikiLeaks, were allegedly done not only by the Russian government, but ordered by the highest levels of the Russian government, Putin himself, in other words. And there has not been anything thus far to, when virtually every intelligence agency came out with that information, 17 different intelligence agencies, supposedly came to the same conclusion. We have no reason to doubt that. So that's the third thing we have that we know for certain. But then Trump, for, again, whatever reason, disputed that. And now I can understand several arguments on that. But for whatever reasons, he came, he not only disputed that information, but he, basically attacked James Clapper, the head of the CIA, the head of the, in other words, he attacked our top intelligence officials and the intelligence apparatus itself. And so the fourth thing we know for a fact is that, and I don't know, I mean, let's not mince words. The truth is, the folks in the intelligence field in this country have have it in for Donald Trump. And so that's, so if there's any doubt, yeah, they'd probably very much like to topple this guy for any number of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that, he questions their credibility. So those, I think, are the four things that we know for a fact about everything so far. Now, beyond that, there has been a lot of speculation and a lot of print as to where this all leads. And Trump has not helped himself at all in that he displays daily evidence of the fact that you can't trust what he says. His spokespeople, whether it be Kellyanne Conway or Sean Spicer, have equally proved adept at avoiding the truth and flatly lying to the American public as well. So Trump, during his announcement today, during his statements, basically made the flat-out statement that he had no ties to Russia whatsoever, no loans from Russia, and that that he has not done business with Russia and he hasn't been there in years. Now that's what his statement was, but that kind of flies in the face of something that his own son said during the campaign just a few months ago, that they had plenty of deals in Russia and made a ton of money. So, which is it? Or is Trump trying to say, well, that was my son and this is me? Because it's all one Trump organization, isn't it? I guess there's a fifth thing that we also know to date, and that is that Trump has already, less than 30 days into his presidency, exploited his position to make himself and his organization more money. He has not divested any of his hotels, for instance. He's not released his tax returns, so we don't even know, what all there is that he's raking in and in what ways. He's gone out of his way to not only promote at least 4 of his businesses while he's been in office, but there's also been talk of both his daughters and his wife's product lines and businesses. So this all, of course, flies in the face of the emoluments clause. So, as I've said before, the Republican Party, which is in power in Congress, has the power at any moment to impeach him and put Pence in place, who's going to do pretty much everything the Republican Party wants done anyway. The only thing at this point because the Republicans, most of the Republicans in Congress, the establishment Republicans in Congress, probably the better majority of Republicans in Congress, don't necessarily trust Trump any more than the Democrats do, somewhat for different reasons. But the fact is that among Trump voters, which probably makes up about, I don't know, a majority of Republican voters, among Trump voters, the poll numbers for Trump, are, his head is above water. They trust him on economic issues. They still believe somehow that he's going to, bring jobs back to America. They believe a lot of his bullshit, especially when he says don't, trust the press. So, and why wouldn't they believe all of this stuff? Because it's the same old crap that they've been fed for years now by the Republican Party itself. So, the real fear of the Republican Party is that if they were to take any steps whatsoever to come down too hard on Donald Trump, let alone impeach him, that it would cost them their own seats in the next election, because all of the Trump voters, which make up, like I say, the bulk of their own support, would take their revenge on them. Personally, I think I don't believe you can trust anything Trump says. Virtually every campaign promise that he's made to the blue-collar working man, who he owes, his election victories to, especially in the Midwest here in Ohio, voters that I'm kind of familiar with. He has, he has broken those promises already, just from the people that he has, nominated to fill, positions in his cabinet. He's going to continue, as long as he's in office, to make a big deal of 500 jobs here, 600 jobs there, or whatever, completely ignoring the fact that during the Obama administration, what has been described as a weak but steady recovery. Obama averaged about 180,000 new jobs, private sector jobs, a month. And but a lot of Trump voters never heard about that, or if they did, they didn't believe the numbers. And that's the other thing about Trump is, Trump loves to attack the Obama administration and anything that Obama did or enacted. But then, in his own situation, he takes a complete about face. I mean, take the leaks. I mean, all you hear Trump complaining about since this whole Russian thing has been in the news here the last couple of weeks, with all of these leaks coming out, some probably from White House officials and others probably coming from the intelligence community, that that resulted in losing Michael Flynn as his national security advisor. All of these kind of leaks, of course, Trump is just hopping mad about. But he was fine with the leaks when WikiLeaks was coming out with details of the Clinton campaign. You didn't hear any kind of, any kind of, harping on, how dare the press report this stuff and, it's all fake news. No. In fact, he urged for more leaks to come. Even famously urged Russia to go to it and to do more of the same. So, again, I personally feel that the one thing that I kind of took stock of in what Trump said today was when he said that he had no ties to Russia, no business interests in Russia. And like I say, his son refuted that months ago. But even if we were to take Trump at his word, and again, he's given us no evidence that we ever should, but even if we were to take him at his word, he could clear a lot of this up real easy by releasing his tax returns, or at least that should give us a better understanding of where he's getting the financing that he has used to do some of the business development that he's done around the world, and whether or not there'd be any real financial ties to Russia. Personally, I don't think that's going to prove it one way or the other, even if it doesn't show up there. I am still very concerned about the fact that Rex Tillerson, ex-CEO of Exxon, who just did this, had just in the last couple of years had worked out a $500 billion deal with Rosneft, the oil and gas state-owned company run basically by Putin's puppet, They had worked out a $500 billion deal. They needed a company like Exxon that had the technology and the wherewithal to go in to Siberia and other places to extract oil, and largely because of the sanctions put in place by Obama after the invasion of Crimea, the annexation of Crimea, and the further interruption of the border of the Ukraine. That that deal is basically on ice, and it's interesting that one of the first functions of Congress was, in fact, to undo a regulation that had forced businesses, including oil and gas businesses, to have to report their earnings in foreign nations. And now, with that undone, I can't help but see a connection there. And I can't help but see a connection that, that Trump picked, of all people, Rex Tillerson. Someone with really no, foreign policy experience, other than the fact that he was the CEO of a, maybe the world's largest company, largest private company that, that happens to do dealings all over the world. And many of them are kind of, there's some pretty shady deals that Exxon has been in, involved with, paying dictators personally, for access rights or distribution rights of oil in that country, in their country, or whatever, as they've done, I think, in Gambia. I think it's Exxon. At any rate, so my biggest concern is that even if Trump is telling the truth, and there's no way really to, there's no reason to be confident that he is, but even if he is telling the truth, that he currently has no, real business ties or anything, he's not, he doesn't owe the Russian government anything. The fact remains that I would not put it past Trump to use this, presidency to make money hand over fist any way he could. And if he thought he could do that with, this oil and gas deal that Exxon's involved in, or other ways with Russia, wouldn't put it past him whatsoever. I personally think that this ongoing investigation is going to find more to the story. It's been reported, for instance, that there were contacts among Russian intelligence officials and people connected with the Trump campaign during the campaign. Something that Trump denied, but he used those kind of weasel words that that lying politicians use. I think I can't remember verbatim what he said, but it was something like, to my knowledge, there were no contacts. Or that's like going on the witness stand and saying, well, I don't recall having done that. So again, you can't trust Trump. Now, the two things that Trump has going for him, like I say, is the fact that there's an awful lot of his supporters. The core of his support is sticking with him. And as long as they do, it's going to be very difficult to mount a serious political challenge in Congress that might actually unseat him from power. The fact is, I think a couple of days after the election, if you were to have been able to hold another election, or at least get an honest polling of those people who voted in the election, I really do believe that there were a number of people who voted Trump kind of as a pox on both houses kind of a vote. In other words, I think there were not massive numbers by any means, but thousands of people who voted Trump basically as a way of sticking their middle finger at the whole political world, and probably wouldn't have done that. Maybe they wouldn't have voted at all. Maybe they would have voted, some other way, but they wouldn't have voted for Trump. I mean, I'm convinced of this. There were probably tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that would not have voted for Trump had they known he was going to actually win that race, and had they actually seen some of the things he was going to do, some of the people he was going to name, some of the directions he was going to take, once he did get elected. Now, the truth is, there's two things that Trump is doing right now that are actually quite popular in America. At least popular enough, one with his supporters, the people that voted for him, and to a certain extent popular even maybe beyond that. And they're both controversial. They're both things that I don't support, but because there's more people in this country that favor these policies than are opposed to them, they're actually working in his favor still at this point. And one is the Muslim ban. One is this, ban on, folks entering the country from these 7 specific countries. The truth is, regardless of your idea as far as the Islamic religion is concerned, to me, the danger in this is that I truly do believe that this policy does in fact put it puts our soldiers at risk, who are even now, working in some of these countries and working and dependent on, in many cases, the cooperation and the assistance that we get from folks in those countries, both to help us, track down and find the people we're hunting down, but at any rate, so I think it's a very dangerous policy from that aspect. I disagree with it on several levels, but if he's saying that he's doing this to protect America, I think it's a very, it's kind of like you get a cut on your finger and you cut your whole finger off as a prevention of getting that cut infected. So I personally don't think our Republican Congress has any interest whatsoever to delve too deeply into this whole Russian thing, even though I think some of this troubles them as well as Democrats. I mentioned before on a previous video, I think I left a note on there, that I felt that if Trump was impeached, it probably wouldn't be on charges of treason or anything to do with the whole, Russian connection. I think there is a Russian connection. I mean, I think, like I say, whether you take Trump at his word or not, I don't. But even if you did, it's pretty clear now that there were people working on his campaign, behind his back or otherwise, that were in contact with Russian authorities, including intelligence officials, who were the ones supposedly behind, the hacking of the DNC and John Podesta's. So at any rate, I don't know what's going to come of all of that, but whatever is eventually found, I think I could see the Republican Party going a different route. In other words, finding a different excuse rather than, Russian coercion or whatever for unseating him from power. My guess would have to do with, the emoluments issue that is, that you'll find in the 25th Amendment that basically states that a president can't profit from a foreign government, and clearly he's already in violation of that in numerous ways, as is family members who are still advising him and an active part of this administration. So I think that would be their out. That would be their way without totally embarrassing themselves. I think. I don't know. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm about as outraged as when I've seen some of the things that they've done or are attempting to do now with Obamacare, for instance. After the way Trump kind of presented himself on Medicare and Social Security, and now I have no confidence whatsoever that he's going to protect anybody from any of the hatchet job that Republicans are going to do. I think he understands that his position is pretty much safe, and that he'll be given enough rope to do some of the things he wants to do, including make a fortune, as long as he allows, Republicans in Congress, the Paul Ryans and the Mitch McConnells, to do those things that they've been itching to do for a long, long time. And so I think that's a cozy little arrangement that they're hoping to work out. And only if Trump becomes such a overwhelming, not just an embarrassment, but a threat, a real threat to them, that will they take steps to oust him from office. I wish it weren't so, but that's what I'm seeing. I'd love to hear your opinion. I'm sorry I kind of rambled so long. I was going to write this all down. But those are, for now, my thoughts. And I'd love to hear what, what you're thinking. I don't mean to downplay my outrage. It's there. But I'm trying to be, civil about all of this. And, so let's hear your thoughts on what's going on, and, point out where you think maybe I'm wrong. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again real soon.